collaborations are a really fun way to add some life and some energy to different companies and learn new techniques, whether it's brewing or branding. And Joey, I think, is one of the more promiscuous collaborators in the space. And so he is going to share with us some of his business insights and really detail how collaborations can help grow a brand. So, Joey, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. So, we didn't set out to be sort of serial collaborators. It's just something that's kind of worked into our DNA at the brewery, and I think it's something I sort of alluded to earlier when I was on the stage. Being in Florida, we didn't have the most robust indigenous scene of breweries, and I think so we always sort of looked outward to what was going on in other parts of the country. And honestly, I started the brewery really as a fan of craft beer and a fan of what I saw other people doing. And I think some of that, that hyper willingness to work with other people sort of comes out of that. But before I get into actually collaborating, I'm going to go ahead and start with the negatives first, because there are some things to consider when you're going to collaborate, and I've heard a lot of people bring up some negative things. So these are some things I've heard negatively about collaborating. So I'm not going to go through every point, but if you want to read through them, the answer to pretty much all of these questions is yes, to varying degrees. All of these things could be a consideration that you would have to think about if you're going to turn the consumer's head in another direction. I personally don't feel like at the end of the day it's a problem, and I think that what you gain out of it far outweighs what you may stand to lose. But to the last one, no, you don't need to collaborate with other people. It's something that I really enjoy doing. I feel like with the core production of what we're doing, I get that, it's time to make the donuts feeling, and I'm always looking for sort of the next fun thing to do. And while we generate a lot of new beers on our own, I mean, we'll probably do 75, 100 unique beers in the course of a year. I have a lot of fun brewing with people that I admire and that can teach me things. We really enjoy not only to learn from other people, but we've picked up some things in the almost 5 years that we've been a brewery, and we like to share those. So moving on, reasons to play nicely and brew with others. The first one is learning those new tricks. I've never walked into a brewery and spent any time there and not learned something new. I learn from my peers every time I interact with them. So to me, if that was the only thing I got out of making a collaboration beer, was that I learned something new that made me better at running my business or better able to make good beer, that'd be enough. If that was all I thought came out of it, that would be enough for me. But there's more to it. As a fan of what everyone else is doing out there, I like the idea of being able to celebrate shared goals or milestones, or just even, you do this kind of beer and we do that kind of beer, and isn't that cool? And let's get together to celebrate that fact. And the taking time out of the norm, that kind of goes into the fact that when you're running your business and you're focusing on those core things, the things that actually pay the bills and make it so you can cut checks to your employees. It's not that those things are boring, but those things are the norm. Those are what you do every day. So these things that sort of take your focus away, that let you sort of get out of your business and see things from different angles, those to me are really important. They sort of recharge my batteries. They let me come back to my business with a new mindset. So I feel like that's really important. Obviously, respect. I have a lot of respect for my peers, and I know that collectively they know a hell of a lot more than I do. The marketing exposure, you can't deny that it's there. If we've learned anything recently, it's that the craft beer consumer wants something new, and he is promiscuous. He wants to see the next thing that's coming along, and he wants to see two breweries that he likes team up and see what they'll come up with. We've gotten a lot of positive marketing exposure because we're willing to sometimes even brew with breweries that some people scratch their head and go, why would they do that? For me, there's always a reason, and I I'm 41 years old, just the history of craft beer and the false starts that it took to get where it is. I'm a big fan of a lot of the, what I call the giants whose shoulders I get to stand on. Some of them that aren't with us anymore, the new Albions, the Burt Grants, but some that are. And I really admire those guys, and I know how much harder it was for them than it was for me. And that's because of them. So sometimes we'll do collaborations with breweries that some people say, oh, those guys are, they're too big, they're not authentic anymore. And I just really recoil against that idea, because I feel like you've been there in the trenches, especially you did this in the 80s and the 90s. That's something that I think we should all tip our hats to, that if you even made that through. So, reminding consumers that you're still there. Some of these things with collaborations, people, because they are looking in so many different directions, doing a collaboration sometimes actually makes them look at your product through new eyes again. So I think we get a lot of benefit when we do things like that. One of the things I think it's really important to consider when you're doing a collaboration is remember why you're doing it. Why did you come together? Why are these 2 breweries or 3 or 12 or whatever? What's the point? Why are they getting together to brew beer? And stick to that. Make that be the focus of why you're brewing the beer. And don't go off on tangents. Brew the beer because this is the story behind it and this is what we're setting out to do. Because that's going to let you lead to the second thing of telling that story. Why should the consumer care if Brewery A and Brewery B are getting together to brew some beer? What's unique about that? What are they going to do that maybe is different, or that maybe they need to give a second look to? And why will that beer that emerges from that collaborative process be reflective of the reason those breweries came together? We've done so many collaborations now, and with collaborations, I think you get breweries together, they're all very creative by nature, and they tend to want to push the boundaries of what's been done before. I kind of feel like, and I'm really starting to believe this more and more, that when 2 breweries come together, they should really find that common ground, things that they do tend to do well. A little bit of what this brewery excels at and a little bit of what that brewery excels at melded together can go a long way. The higher concept you go with a beer, the more out there, if you're trying to do, a tropical fruit punch goza or something, the more of a walk you're asking your core consumer to take away from what you may do. So I think it's important to make sure that you're touching on who you are as a brewery and who that person you're collaborating with. Why does your customer care if you brew a beer with another brewery? I think for the reasons that I said before, for me, it's important that I have a lot of respect for the people that are in the industry. So I feel like, I've got this opportunity. I can point heads to things that I think in the industry are good. I feel like if I operate well within the space, I don't have to worry about my company. I'll be able to sell beer. But I feel like I can highlight things, especially in my home state where we have a little bit more of a pull than obviously we do nationally. I can highlight things. I know people are coming into the space anyway. So if I think a certain brewery is doing things the way that it should be done, I have the opportunity to expose them to more people. And again, that kind of goes back to those concerns. Are you cannibalizing yourself? I don't think so. There is the chance that you could lose sales to them, but again, like I said, I fundamentally feel that if I operate well, I don't have to worry about what any of my competition or my collaborators are doing. Nelson Mandela has a great quote. Resentment. It's like resentment. It's like drinking poison and hoping your enemy dies. If I go into a collaboration and that launches someone else to success, that's not a problem for me. That's a good result, and it's not something that I would ever be worried about. So, and if I get positive benefits from that, if someone says, well, that was really cool that you would shine a spotlight on someone that is technically your competition, and if that yields a positive result for me, fine. If it doesn't, I'm also fine with that. I'm going to sleep the same at the end of the night. So remembering the why, making sure when you go into it that all of those possibilities are there, that you could maybe they get more exposure out of it than you did, and maybe if you're brewing beer at both places, maybe the consumer thinks they did a better beer than you did. That's not something that I'm worried about, and if it is something that you're worried about, then maybe collaborations aren't going to work for you. So is Ain't It Cool a good enough reason to collaborate? I kind of think it is. I think we're in a cool industry, and if you just really like someone and you think they're cool, or you think what they're doing is cool, and you guys want to hang out and maybe brew a beer, I think that's a good enough reason. And I think even from a marketing standpoint, it's a good enough reason. But that's something that you're going to have to evaluate on your own. Sharing your company's take on what else is cool and worthy, that's kind of what I spoke to about putting that spotlight. If there's things that I think are interesting, and now we don't just collaborate with other breweries, I mean, and in fact, you collaborate with everybody every day. You collaborate with your distributors, you collaborate with your suppliers. We do a lot of collaborations that people don't see at our brewery. We're kind of the incubator for breweries in Florida. A lot of the guys that are running breweries in Florida now have interned at Cigar City, or they formerly worked at Cigar City. I field a lot of calls, a lot of emails about people opening breweries, and I'm sure from people from other industries, I know everyone here in this room gets it, but people in other industries, they don't understand when I say, yeah, I spend a lot of my time teaching people how to be better at making beer. Well, why would I do that? Because if they're coming in anyway and I can help them make better beer, that's going to help my business. If they come into the segment and they don't make good beer, that's going to hurt me because I'm craft the same as them. Even though I'm Cigar City, they're craft, I'm craft, we get painted with the same brush. So a lot of the collaborations we do, you never hear about. We have guys coming into the brewery, brewing beer with us, but really they're doing it to learn to make beer better. And I'm very happy to do those things because I have to protect that quality. Because I'm under that craft umbrella, whether I like it or not. I do like it, but whether I did or not, I'm under it. So I've got to be protective of that. And that's one of the other things I think you gain out of collaboration is you learn, you increase the knowledge, you increase the skill set. So I get a lot out of that. And highlighting other people's approaches and the ethos of why they do things, I think all plays into that. It raises the bar for everyone. So it's something that obviously I'm a big fan. So if you decide that you're going to collaborate, I touched on this earlier. I think it should reflect who the two parties are. If you have two breweries that all they do is traditional German lagers, you probably shouldn't collaborate on an imperial stout. As popular as those are, I think that those things should be reflective of that. When you get into the business side of it, I take a lot of cues for how I approach collaborations from Patrick Rue, the first person I ever collaborated on a beer with at the brewery in Placentia, California. He kind of just had a very laissez-faire, let's just get it done. Let's not worry about it so much. We'll brew beer here. If you want some, I'll give you some. And then when you brew beer, you can give me some. And so we kind of take that approach. But when you work with different people, they're going to have different levels of comfort about how that works. I'm very whatever, we can make it happen. But if you're working with someone and they're worried about, what are you going to be doing with my brand on your bottle? Are you going to try to brew something again? Spell that all out ahead of time so that you don't potentially have something that should be done in the spirit of camaraderie, then later becoming something that's contentious that you're going to be fighting about. So if you decide you're going to collaborate and you're worried about what may happen, make sure you spell that all out ahead of time so you can actually have fun when it comes to brewing the beer and launching the product. I personally like the home and home. It's the college football kind of thing. You play at my house, I'll play at your house. I like that because it allows both sides to come together, again, in separate settings. I go to your brewery, and I get to feel for who you are and what you do, and likewise, you get to come to my brewery and brew a beer and get out of your element and maybe recharge your batteries a little bit. So some case studies. We've done a lot of stuff with Mikkel from Mikkeler, and what I really love about Mikkeler is because his whole life is basically collaborations. He doesn't have a brewery; he's a gypsy brewer. Every time he brews, in effect, it's a collaboration with someone else. And this is actually not the first beer. This beer we brewed at Ama in Denmark, but we've done other beers with Mikkel before this one. This one was a lot of fun. Again, every time you brew with Mikkel, you're brewing in a different facility if you're not brewing, obviously, at your own. So we've brewed with him in Denmark, we've brewed with him in Belgium, and then obviously at our own facility as well. And so that learning base gets expanded even further because you're going so far outside of your normal element by going to these different places, and it always throws a curveball because every time you go to a different brewery where he may be brewing, you're going to have different sets of parameters for the equipment, and so what you're going to be able to do process-wise is going to change. So I always have a lot of fun working with him, and he's kind of like me too, very hands-off. Let's just figure it out. Let's not worry about, too much about the economics. You want some beer, I'll give you some beer. How much do you need? That really, we've never had anything written. It's always been kind of a email handshake. And so I really like working with him on things. Plus, I think he's a really creative, interesting guy, and I get a lot of enjoyment working out of him. So working with the big guys. Hi, Brady. So we really enjoyed working with Widmer, and to me, they're one of those, old school breweries that paved the way. And I had a lot of fun, getting to meet the Widmer brothers and working with them. And we really, it was nice to work with them because they're obviously a lot more polished. They've been doing this a lot longer. We're very seat of our pants in many ways. As we get bigger, we obviously get more refined. But to see how the process got walked through from beginning to end, working with someone like Widmer who has the resources that they do, but also still that very beer geeky passion. I mean, they really didn't say no to any of the concepts that we came up with, and what we actually executed, a very high gravity beer that was aged on several different barrels and different types of wood. I mean, that's not an easy undertaking, and I know that because we do a lot of that in-house. We usually have 20 or 30 different barrel age projects going at once. I know what a bear that is, especially as you try to scale it up. So it was really cool to me that they could sort of take what they'd learned about being a large operator and embrace some of the more wackadoo things that we were asking them to do. So I learned a ton out of working with Widmer on Gentleman's Club, and it's an experience that I would never, ever not want to repeat. I had a lot of fun doing it. So doing it all at home. So Either and Or are two beers that we did prior. We had done beers called Neither and Nor. And with Sean Hill from Hill Farmstead, who's become a really good buddy of mine, and Grassroots out of Denmark. And they just didn't have the capacity to do it, not that we had so much more. So we just decided, you know what, for this second round, for Either and Or, we'll just do it all at our place. Because that's what was going to work, and the other alternatives weren't. So we didn't worry. We sort of treated like his collaboration that he brewed at our place as if it was his. So we sort of let him say, look, we'll pay us back for the ingredients, and then the beer is yours. And that's how we sort of approached that. So we sent them the beer so that they could have it up in Vermont, and then we kept Either there. And we learned so much working with Sean about how we approach certain things, especially hop usage and balancing pH with beers. The technical side of what we learned was huge, and Sean's willingness to share some of those things and some of the things that that I gratefully that we were able to teach to them about how we did things were very enjoyable to me. Had a lot of fun doing those collaborations and can't wait to do another. But that was one that was much more, we sort of carried more of the heavy lifting of actually getting the beer made. And that situation, again, it's going to be unique in everything you do. We've done a lot of collaborations. I'm going to go to the big list here. I've done a lot of collaborations with smaller breweries. Seventh Son is a local brewery to us, and their head brewer used to work for us. And they're not, they're a 4 or 5 barrel system. They don't have a lot of capabilities to do things more robustly than what we were able to do. So when we work with other breweries, we kind of want to sort of keep in mind how can we be most fair to them? How can we make sure that they're going to get out of this as much as we feel like we're going to get? Especially when you're working with new startup breweries. A lot of times they've never done things like this, so they really, you've kind of hold their hand and walk them through the process. We had a lot of fun doing one, the almost towards the bottom, Folklore Brewing and the Alabama Homebrewers. Alabama, as many of you may know, was the last state in the union to decriminalize homebrewing. And our head brewer, Wayne Wombles, is actually, he's over at Coronado doing a collaboration beer right now. He got his start homebrewing in Alabama. So when they overturned it, that was just something that he really wanted to do. He wanted to be able to kind of go do something and let some of the home brewers that he knew that were technically breaking the law, let them sort of celebrate in a commercial product what was going on. So his buddy Jeremy Pate, who owns Folklore Brewing and Cigar City, and the Alabama Homebrewers Group, we all got together to design this recipe. We're able to kick it off and do the big launch in Alabama, and went over really well, and it was really well received by the homebrewers because, again, these guys had sort of struggled in anonymity to turn this law over for so many years, and obviously with the proximity to Alabama and our brewer being from Alabama, we're very keenly aware of that, but I think they felt from where they were in Alabama looking to the rest of the world that people had just forgot about Alabama and that people there did really like good beer. They just had a lot of trouble getting it because of the laws, alcohol caps, and homebrewing. So I really got a lot out of doing the Folklore Brewing one, and so that's the big list, and that's what I had to say about collaborating.